It's wild. Lions sleep for like 20 hours a day, 20 freaking hours. And when they're awake, they're not scrolling through Instagram comparing themselves to other lions or checking their every 5 seconds. They eat, they mate, they protect their territory, and then they go back to sleep. No anxiety, no overthinking, no 3 a.m. spirals about what some random lion said to them last Tuesday. They just exist. Pure, unapologetic presence. Now imagine if you could tap into even a fraction of that energy. Not the sleeping for 20 hours part, although honestly, that sounds pretty good right now. But that complete presence. That total lack of giving a damn about things that don't actually matter. That ability to be so centered, so grounded, so absolutely. Unbothered that your mere existence makes anxious people question their entire life choices. We're living in the golden age of anxiety, and nobody talks about it. Everyone's walking around like their nervous system is permanently set to emergency broadcast mode. You wake up, grab your phone before your feet even hit the ground, and immediately download 17 different reasons to be stressed before. You've even brushed your teeth. Someone's mad about something on Twitter. Your ex posted a story. Your boss sent an email at midnight. The world is ending. Again, Tuesday feels like a crisis. Wednesday feels like a breakdown. And by Friday, you're so fried you can't even remember what you were worried about on Monday. But here's what nobody tells you about that lion. That 20 hours of rest isn't laziness. It's strategy. It's conservation. It's understanding that energy is finite and chaos is infinite. So you better choose your battles wisely. That lion doesn't waste calories chasing gazelles it can't catch. It doesn't roar at every shadow. It waits. It watches. It strikes when it matters. You could learn something from that. See, the world has convinced you that being constantly activated is normal. That if you're not stressed, you're not working hard enough. That if you're not worried, you're not paying attention. That if you're not reacting to every single thing that happens, you must be dead inside. But what if they've got it backwards? What if the most alive thing you could do is refuse to participate in the collective panic attack we call modern life? I'm talking about developing the kind of calm that makes people nervous. The kind that doesn't flinch when Karen, from accounting, starts her daily meltdown. The kind that doesn't get pulled into family drama during the holidays. The kind that can sit in a room full of people losing their minds and just breathe. Just exist. Just be the eye of the hurricane while everything else spins out of control. You want to know what real power looks like? It's not having the biggest voice or the strongest opinion or the most followers. It's being the person who doesn't need to prove anything because their presence speaks louder than words ever could. It's walking into chaos and not catching the contagion. It's seeing drama and thinking, that's not my circus. Those aren't my monkeys. And I didn't buy a ticket to this show. But let's be real for a second. Calm isn't trending. Anxiety is. Drama is. Breaking down in public is somehow more relatable than handling your business quietly. We've made mental illness into a personality trait and emotional instability into content. Everyone's racing to see who can be the most triggered, the most offended, the most devastated by things that won't matter in a week. And I get it. I really do. Calm feels boring when you're used to chaos. Silence feels empty when you're addicted to noise. Peace feels like death when you've been running on adrenaline and coffee for the past 5 years. Your nervous system has been hijacked by notifications, deadlines, and the constant need to have an opinion about everything. You've forgotten what it feels like to just be still. But what if stillness isn't emptiness? What if it's fullness? What if all that noise you think you need is actually just keeping you from hearing yourself think? What if the reason you can't focus, can't sleep, can't enjoy anything is because you're constantly broadcasting on every frequency except the one that matters most? Here's something they don't teach you in school. Your nervous system doesn't care about your goals, your dreams, your 5-year plan, or your vision board. It only cares about one thing: survival. And every time you check your phone, scroll through social media, or dive headfirst into someone else's crisis, you're telling it that there's danger everywhere. You're training it to stay alert, stay activated, stay ready to fight or flee at any moment. Dot. So it does. It floods your system with stress hormones. It keeps your muscles tense. It makes your heart race over things that aren't actually threats. It turns every email into an emergency and every silence into rejection. It makes you feel like you're constantly running late for something, even when you're sitting still. That's why you're exhausted. That's why even your weekends feel like work. That's why you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. Your body is stuck in survival mode, and survival mode isn't designed for happiness. It's designed for staying alive long enough to reproduce and maybe find some food. That's it. But here's the beautiful part. You can retrain it. You can teach your nervous system that you're safe, not by convincing it with words, but by showing it with actions. By choosing not to react to every provocation. By letting some things be none of your business. By practicing the lost art of minding your own damn life. You ever notice how some people can walk into a room and immediately calm everyone down? They don't have to say anything profound. They don't have to fix anything or solve anything or heal anything. They just show up with this quiet confidence that says, whatever's happening here, it's going to be okay. Not because they're naive or disconnected, but because they've learned to distinguish between what requires their energy and what doesn't. That's not a gift you're born with. That's a skill you develop, one uncomfortable situation at a time, one moment of choosing not to react at a time, one deep breath instead of a sharp response at a time. Think about it. When was the last time you sat somewhere without your phone? Not because it died or you forgot it, but because you chose to just exist without the constant input? When was the last time you let someone be wrong on the internet without correcting them? When was the last time you heard gossip and just didn't participate? When was the last time someone tried to trigger you and you just smiled and walked away? These aren't small things. These are revolutionary acts in a world that profits from your reactivity. Every time you don't take the bait, you're building the muscle. Every time you pause instead of responding immediately, you're choosing who you want to be instead of letting circumstances choose for you. And people will test you. Trust me on this. Calm people make insecure people very uncomfortable. Your peace will feel like judgment to people who can't find their own. Your silence will feel like rejection to people who need constant validation. Your refusal to engage with drama will feel like abandonment to people who live for chaos. They'll poke at you. They'll try to get a reaction. They'll tell you you're too quiet, too serious, too removed. They'll accuse you of not caring, of being cold, of thinking you're better than everyone else. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to defend yourself, to explain, to prove that you do care, you do feel, you are engaged, ... single quotes, T. Your peace doesn't need defending. Your calm doesn't require explanation. Your boundaries don't need justification. The right people will understand. The wrong people will hate it. And both of those reactions will tell you everything you need to know. Because here's what happens when you stop participating in collective chaos. You start seeing clearly. You start thinking instead of just reacting. You start choosing instead of just responding. You realize that most of the things you thought were emergencies were actually just other people's inability to handle normal life stress. You see that friend who always has a crisis isn't unlucky. They're addicted to drama. You see that coworker who's always overwhelmed isn't busier than everyone else. They just can't prioritize. You see that family member who's always starting fights isn't passionate. They're emotionally immature, and instead of getting sucked into their vortex, you can observe from a distance with compassion, but without participation. You can care without carrying their emotional baggage. You can love without losing yourself. That's when you realize that most of what you thought was connection was actually just shared dysfunction. Most of what you thought was caring was actually just codependency. Most of what you thought was being present was actually just being reactive. Real presence is different. It's steady. It's grounded. It's there whether the other person is having a good day or a terrible day. It doesn't change based on circumstances or moods or external validation. It just is . And when you become that kind of presence, everything changes, not because you're trying to change anything, but because stability has its own magnetic field. Peace has its own power. Calm has its own influence. People start coming to you for advice because they know you won't just tell them what they want to hear. They start trusting you because your emotional state doesn't depend on theirs. They start respecting you because you've stopped trying to earn respect, started simply commanding it through who you are. Don't you become the friend people call when they need clarity, not when they need someone to join their pity party. You become the coworker people trust with important projects because they know you won't fall apart under pressure. You become the family member people actually want to be around because you don't bring the drama. You neutralize it, but the most important thing that happens is you start trusting yourself. When you're not constantly reacting, you can actually hear your own intuition. When you're not addicted to external validation, you can develop internal wisdom. When you're not running from discomfort, you can sit with difficult emotions long, enough to understand what they're trying to tell you. You learn the difference between loneliness and solitude, between boredom and peace, between silence and emptiness. You discover that most of what you thought you needed from other people, you actually had inside yourself all along. That doesn't mean you become a hermit or stop caring about people. It means you stop using relationships to regulate your nervous system. You stop expecting other people to fix what's broken inside you. You stop giving away your power to anyone willing to take it. You become self-contained in the best possible way. Not selfish, not isolated, but complete, whole, present, available for genuine connection because you're no longer desperately seeking it. And yes, this is hard work. Probably the hardest work you'll ever do. Because it requires you to sit with all the things you've been running from, all the feelings you've been numbing, all the thoughts you've been avoiding, all the truths you've been denying. It means facing the fact that maybe some of your relationships are built on shared trauma rather than genuine compatibility. Maybe some of your habits are actually addictions. Maybe some of your strong opinions are actually just defense mechanisms. It means getting comfortable with being misunderstood, with being called boring, with being accused of not caring enough, with standing alone sometimes while everyone else participates in collective insanity. But on the other side of that discomfort is something incredible. It's the ability to be fully present with whatever life brings you. Not because everything is good, but because you're finally strong enough to handle whatever comes. Not because you don't feel fear, but because you don't let fear drive your decisions. You develop what I call crocodile calm. That prehistoric, unshakable stillness that comes from knowing you can handle whatever happens. Not because you're the strongest or the smartest or the most prepared, but because you've learned to be present with uncertainty. You made peace with not knowing. You've accepted that control is an illusion and the only thing you can actually manage is your response to whatever shows up. That's true freedom. Not the ability to do whatever you want, but the ability to be okay with whatever happens. Not the power to control circumstances, but the strength to remain yourself regardless of circumstances, and in a world that's constantly trying to knock you off balance. That's not just personal development. That's rebellion. That's revolution. That's the most radical thing you can do. So start small. Start with not checking your phone for the first hour after you wake up. Start with taking 3 deep breaths before responding to anything that triggers you. Start with letting some conversations end in silence instead of rushing to fill the space with words. Start with being okay with being bored. Start with sitting with discomfort instead of immediately trying to fix it. Start with observing your thoughts instead of believing every single one of them, because every moment you choose calm over chaos, you're not just changing your own life. You're modeling a different way of being for everyone around you. You're showing them that it's possible to be human without being constantly activated, that it's possible to care without being consumed, that it's possible to be engaged with life without being enslaved by it, and maybe, just maybe, you'll inspire someone else to step out of the collective panic and into their own power, to choose presence over productivity, to choose peace over performance, to choose being overdoing. That's how the world changes. not through grand gestures or viral movements or political solutions, but through individuals who decide to stop participating in the insanity and start modeling sanity instead. One calm person at a time, one conscious breath at a time, one moment of choosing differently at a time. Your nervous system is waiting. Your peace is available. Your power is ready. The only question is, are you?